welcome back to the channel. In this week's video, I bought another Landcruiser. It's not this one. This is the truck I just bought. It's an Fj55 straight from the farm with every piece of rust cut out of it. I know, you're just as excited as I am. Man, I got juked on this one. What the heck am I doing? Well, I'm sure you got a ton of questions, and the first couple questions probably are, why? Why would somebody do this? Why would you buy this thing? Why is the sky blue? Well, that's a scientific fact, but yeah, why? Why? I don't know. I don't know why. I have no flippin' idea, except this thing just kept on showing up in my Facebook Marketplace feed, and it looked like a good idea. I mean, it runs. It was sort of restored at one point. Well, there is some answers to those initial questions that you might have had about this truck. First being, why would you do this to a 55? Well, the previous owner found out really quickly that 55s rust out terribly. So he cut it up and made this sweet little buggy. I'm a little partial on the pink paint, but it's still kind of cool, and I probably would have rocked it in its old state. Later, a farmer down the road from him said, hey, I could use that thing to haul some hay around my farm. You want to make an exchange? So he lent it out to the farmer. Many years later, the truck showed back up behind a gas station, and he got a phone call because he still had the title to it. Come pick up your truck. And then he proceeded to paint it white. Not wearing that pink paint, don't need that. And then post it on Marketplace. Second question, why, Jonas? Why would you do this? Why would you waste your money? Well, a guy was losing a little sleep, too much sleep, looking at these pictures day in and day out, just kept showing up. So I saw a video of it run. It's got a healthy 1F, great transmission and transfer case. Everything's shifting, working. I need that for a project truck that you might remember. Well, of course! How could you forget about the dirty Fj55 Iron Pig? Well, that's because we never got it running, and she's been sitting in the same hole for the last several months since we posted that video. Well, most of that is true, but some of it's a lie because we did in fact get it running, and there's a short clip of it here. Yes, how did we get it running? We put a whole bunch of stop leak goop in the cylinders, bumped that compression, and she finally turned over, and she moved slightly. But the motor is so tired, it couldn't even move this thing backwards and forwards very well, so she just sat. Well, the plan is to cut this thing up for scrap over here, harvest some of the parts that I thought were initially good, and sell them off to you all, because there are some good things on there. The glove box storage, you see that? Perfect. Will work for somebody's project. And then we're gonna be pulling her heart and soul out and putting it into this truck that completely doesn't deserve it because it's super rusty. But I'd really like to see this one perhaps live on, maybe in a mudding rig of some kind, taking it off-road or sending it down the road. That's somebody that really wants an Iron Pig. Don't get it right, just get it running is what I'm told. So that's the plan for this video. Let's see if we can make it happen. Well, the sadness and madness of pulling this Fj55 truck farm implement thing apart has begun. We're getting ready to pull this 1F motor out, and I just, took the hood off for once because I really wanted to see all this MacGyver-y stuff, trickery, ideally. Just wanted to make it easier for me to get this motor out so we can make it easy to put it in the other truck. Things like the distributor have already been disconnected. We gotta go ahead and disconnect our fuel line, our motor mounts on either side of the motor. We have to disconnect our alternator, our downpipe, and our linkage for the carburetor, which shouldn't be too bad. As well as, remember in other videos, The bell housing on these early F motors has to come out with the transmission. That's because the bell housing has little ears that act as if it's a transmission cross member. So all that stuff needs to be disconnected back there, and we're gonna be pulling the transmission and motor out as one piece, which will make it really easy to go in that other Fj55. Well, in case you're wondering what people were sitting on going down the road in this vehicle, it's just plywood that's not really bolted down to anything, you know, extremely safe. But we're gonna be ripping this stuff out to have a bonfire with it a little later in remembrance of this vehicle, roast some marshmallows, you know what I'm talking about. And ripping it out gives us direct access to all the drive shaft and transmission bolts, so I don't need to be on my back for the next hour struggling with rusty old Fj55 Toyota bolts. So let's get that wood out and back of the pickup truck and get ready for our bonfire. I just don't know what I'm gonna do without you. All the miles we drove and all that rust we developed. At least you make a hot fire. So long, Iron Pig. So long. I don't know what I'm gonna do. The 55 grill is already being used as wall art, which can only mean one thing, and that is this 1F is ready to come out of this 55. I do want to show everybody one thing real fast that I haven't seen since the 1962 Willis Jeep that we pulled out of the woods, and that is the transmission. It is completely overfilled and really just doesn't need any maintenance at all from all the water and gear oil that's in there. That's probably gonna get all over the place as we connect the engine hoist and yank this thing on out of here. Well, it's time to clean out the landfill. That is this 55 that's been sitting in my yard for several years. Came to me looking like this, and I really just don't want to tow it to the building to get the motor in with all this junk in it. Just basically dropping off a mouse apartment for all the mice over there too. It's actually slowly become my hardware store, and what I mean by that, every time I need a nut, bolt, screw, toilet bowl fitting, you name it, you just open up a door, romp around on the floor, and usually find something you can use for a project or some type of doohickey that you're working on. Not really the best thing for a vehicle you're trying to save, or its floors that are slowly rotting out. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be ripping out the headliner, we're gonna be cleaning this thing out the best we can, and then dragging it over to the building to rip out her heart. Let's have some fun. This thing is disgusting. This is purely for your entertainment value. Well, it ain't perfect, and she's got a long way to go, but went ahead and vacuumed up a ton of dirt. She's come a long way in a short period of time. Obviously, she's got holes in the floor and still a ton more dirt. And as I was digging through the truck and sucking up stuff, I found a really cool piece of paper that speaks about the registration. It says here that it was last registered in 1997. It is pretty local to where I bought the truck here in Virginia, so that's really cool that it stayed its whole entire life here in Virginia. I think she is ready to be closed up and buttoned up. Get ready to go on the trailer. Anywhere but here. Yes, she's out of my yard finally. Huh. There's another one. It just appeared, but I thought we got rid of they just keep showing up. Well, I was really hoping this truck looked a little better once it was in the building, but you know what? It just still looks sad and decrepit, honestly. Maybe when we take the motor out, which is ready to come out, it might look a little better. So let's jump over there, get that chain connected, and that motor on out. Let's go, old piggy. Ah, a little fighter, are we? You're just gonna box me on the way out, take all my patience away from me. No, I'm not kidding. This was the hardest motor I've ever had to take out of one of these trucks. And I've taken a lot of these Landcruiser motors out in the past. Probably the bell housing ears and the transmission that are still attached to the boat anchor, and the fact that these motors are just really not maneuverable inside an engine bay because they're so dang heavy. That's probably it. I don't know. Somebody needs something for a 1F motor, or you need a 3-speed transmission and case. Let me know. Comment below. We'll get it out to you. Go Reds! Well, y'all missed the struggle of getting this 1F in this 55. Trust me, you really didn't want to watch that. It was cringeworthy and took absolutely way too long. But we are all bolted in and ready to start connecting this thing to the piggy that just doesn't deserve this motor. So let's get started. Let's jump into it. We have a ton of stuff to get connected. Potentially we could drive this thing down the road today. Yeah, probably not. Well, we'll try. Well, the 1F motor is hooked up for the most part. We still need to hook up the cooling system, which we are gonna be running an Fj60 radiator, as I don't have any more Fj55 radiators that are in good shape. So we still need to build some bracketry to mount to the radiator support here on the 55. All of our fuel system hooked up. We're running a little bit of a baby lawnmower gas tank here. Still running the electric fuel pump that was on the other truck 55. We have our coil, ballast resistor, all wired up to the points ignition, running to our carburetor. We should be ready to go and turn the key here, see if she will fire up. And then maybe we'll move this thing outside, you know, to put some more light on the engine bay so you can really see what's going on under there. So let's go ahead and turn the key, see what happens. Go. There is so much life in this engine bay right now. Woo! I don't have any business moving this vehicle anywhere but off a cliff or the junkyard. But we're gonna do it anyways, because I need a little bit of a trophy and some victory dances, okay? Freaking moved for the first time in probably 30 years. He has no reason to be out there moving about, what, 20 feet? But it's still freaking cool that we put a little bit of elbow grease, a couple days of work into that old truck, and she is moving under her own power. We still got to get that cooling system ready to go, like I mentioned. We got to get that wiring a little bit more squeaky clean under there, as well as get the linkage for the carburetor a little bit more seamless. We'll probably go back to an OEM carburetor, and we can start cleaning it up. You know, get more than just the driver's side door to work, and maybe, you know, wash the dang thing. Anybody thought of that? Yeah, I probably won't do that, but whatever. Tons of work to go into this vehicle still, but little victories is what keeps this dream and working on these things going. Now that we're finally outside with the 55, let's talk about what's going on under the hood here. We want to look at the wiring here, as sometimes it's very difficult to figure out what's going on. These motors can be very simple. We have a ballast resistor here. We have our coil. Our coil is energized by this wire here coming from the 55 wiring loom, which in return runs a ground up to the ballast resistor and then down to our distributor, which ultimately is the circuit that creates the spark. We have another wire that with a black tip here, that is our ground coming from our wiring loom as well. This line here would have been wire that would have gone to the distributor originally. We just did an external wire, which is this yellow one, because that was already on there from pulling it out of the other truck. We also have this electric fuel pump down here. We're not running this mechanical, as I doubt it would actually work since it's filled with dirt at each nozzle. What we have here is a ground to the frame, and then we have a wire coming up to the coil. So when we turn the key on, that energizes the coil, as well as turns on the fuel pump, which then we can crank it over and she runs on an electric fuel pump. It took me a little bit to figure out all of that wiring, but I wanted everybody to see that on camera so that if you were trying to diagnose your own truck, let's maybe take this thing for a little bit of a ride. Our tire is literally ready to explode. It's kind of scary.